Hi, and welcome to Concussion Talk Podcast. I'm Nick Mercer, and I'll be joined in this interview by Tara Bradbury. It's Brain Injury Awareness Month in Canada, and this is episode 68. Concussion Talk Podcast is presented by HeadCheck Health. HeadCheck Health bridges the gaps in concussion care through simple, powerful technology. Join organizations like the Canadian Football League, Track Factory Racing, the Canadian Junior Hockey League, Eastern Washington University, and Volleyball Canada, who rely on HeadCheck Health to improve communication and optimize care. Visit headcheckhealth.com for more. I'm on now with my first co-host, Tara Bradbury, and the NLBIA President, Marina, and the Executive Director of Brain Injury Canada, who is Michelle McDonald-Friedman. Is that what your thing is?
I'm Michelle McDonald.
Michelle McDonald. Your Skype name was. Yeah. But so we're just talking about June being Brain Injury Awareness Month in Canada, and what both organizations are doing, the Newfoundland Labrador Brain Association and Brain Injury Canada, and how this whole year, basically 2020 and COVID and all that stuff, how this has all impacted everything. So to do with brain injury, disability, and mental health, and everything brain related. So I will start off by getting Marina White, because Angie Smith, who you mentioned, she was on the podcast in 2015, probably fourth podcast. This podcast 68, and she was on podcast 4, and so people that haven't obviously listened to that one, can you, Marina, can you just talk about Newfoundland Labrador Brain Association and what you do there?
Okay, Nick, well, we're a nonprofit organization which provides community-based education and support and intervention services for brain injury survivors and their family. So we were established in 1984, and we became incorporated in 1987. So we're currently the only brain injury organization providing any services for survivors and their families in Newfoundland and Labrador. So with this COVID-19, it's kind of put a halt on everything that we're providing, services, and when it comes to your social events, like we have an ABLE group, which I'm the coordinator for, and
Right,
we do
yes.
that. And we do several things. And I mean, when you're in a situation with brain injury or any disease or sickness, I mean, it does impact on your mental health. And to be in the situation we are now, where people are shut in, they're alone, there's very little sometimes correspondence between the outside world, it does have a detrimental effect on one's mental health. And, we're trying to provide services in the situation that we are now, but obviously we can't be near people.
Guess where you can, because I remember I was on the board of the NLBIA, which is the acronym. I was on the board of that for a while until 2017, when I had to leave because I had other health issues to deal with. But so, and I remember you being involved with the ABLE group, and say you set up the ABLE group. You established the ABLE group for a while. I'm not sure when exactly it was set up. That was 2013, maybe.
We started the center about 18 years ago, and then the Newfoundland Labrador Brain Injury Association, we adopted the group.
Okay.
And it's grown from that on to what it is now. And I mean, we meet every week. And every alternate week we bowl, and I mean, we have such competitive bowlers. I mean, it's scary.
Is everyone there brain injured or disabled, or how the group is? The group is who's involved in the group? Who's involved with the group?
Who?
Who's involved with the group?
We have, several of our clients have brain injuries, but at different capacities. Like stroke. head trauma, some from other forms of things that have occurred in their
Yeah,
lives, and
yeah.
they've
Michelle,
sustained injury to their brains. And I mean, the brain injury is not only something that occurs from an automobile accident. I mean, Alzheimer's and ALS and all neurological diseases, they affect your brain greatly. And in many cases, it changes your personality, it changes the way you talk, the way you walk, different afflictions. And no two brain injuries are alike. So every treatment that a brain injury survivor um, um, I mean, it's a unique treatment. It's just more or less for that specific person, because all the disabilities with brain injury are so different. So we
Yeah.
have to treat them differently.
Marina, can I ask you? I know you yourself, you got involved with the organization because you have personal experience with brain injury. Are you willing to talk about that a little bit?
Oh, absolutely, yes, yeah. And well, my son sustained a traumatic brain injury 20 years ago through an automobile accident.
Right.
And he had a second brain injury after that as well. So, I mean, he had two. And he's survived. He's doing quite well. He does have problems with his speech and mobility, but cognitively, I mean, he's very good.
Mm-hmm.
And he works part-time, and he volunteers, and he's part of a able group, and he sits in on board meetings. And that was my first experience with brain injury. And unfortunately, both of my parents had Alzheimer's, which is another affliction to your brain that changes your mood and your personality. And, it's a whole realm of issues. And my husband, he was diagnosed with ALS in September, and he passed in June. So that was another form of brain injury, very aggressive.
Absolutely.
Very aggressive, very debilitating. I think of all the injuries I've been associated with and I've seen, I think that had to be the worst. I mean, just
yeah,
terrible,
yeah.
So that's been my experience with brain injury, and I've come to, and I wanted to give back as well, because so many people helped me going through all of these processes of trauma, because no one knows what brain injury really is. I mean, what it does to a person. It's your brain. There's so much unknown about the brain, how it functions. I mean, it's your computer. It's your mainframe. So, I mean, when something happens to your computer, I mean, you don't work as well.
No.
So, and I was blessed with so many people, so many friends, and just helping me and my family with the situation. And I just felt like I want to give back. And if I can just help one person, make one person smile, I mean, I feel like, well, I've done a little job.
Michelle, can I ask how prevalent brain injury is in Canada?
So there's 1.5 million. Stats are a bit hard to come by in Canada. We use the stats that we use are extrapolated from the U.S. So we are hoping for some university or academic center to take this on to really identify the accurate number. But the current stat that's used is 1.5 million Canadians. But as Marina said, it doesn't just affect the individual; it affects the whole family. Right. So the number is quite much higher. And Marina did touch on that there's so there's the umbrella term of acquired brain injury, and underneath that there's traumatic and non-traumatic. So the definition of acquired brain injury is an injury to the brain after birth that's not degenerative in nature. So car accidents, strokes, brain tumors, assaults, intimate partner violence are all forms of brain injury. So the numbers are staggeringly high. And then also when you look at the numbers for concussion, not every concussion is reported. We use hospitalization data, so how many people go to the emergency room, how many people go to their family doctors, but even that's not completely accurate. So the real picture for concussion is very unknown, but it's quite high. And so this is a prevalent issue that needs to be looked at further and prioritized, but it's just not being prioritized. And even before COVID-19, it was not being prioritized.
And is it possible that people, can have a brain injury and not be aware, be misdiagnosed, say, as depression or as something else, and not connect it to a concussion that they had that they maybe didn't go see the doctor for?
Yeah, absolutely. And we see that a lot in the prison population. There was a study done through University of Toronto, and they went to prisons and asked about childhood injuries, concussion. And it was staggering. 78% of people had self-reported concussions from when they were young. So absolutely, there can be lasting impacts from undiagnosed injuries.
Okay.
And sorry, Michelle, you just said you were on episode, like, I don't even know the number, 64 or not 60. In April or March. In March, we put it on in early April. But Brain Injury Canada was doing this is the start of the COVID crisis. So Brain Injury Canada was doing the brain injury challenges. And how have they been going, and what's new in terms of that? What's your new challenges that you're promoting?
So that was sort of our way of engaging our social media crowd with. We know that people with brain injury are already socially isolated, and so this has impacted them even further because a lot of their community programs have been taken away. And a lot of their gym time or their physiotherapists and occupational therapists, a lot of that has been it just vanished. So we issued a 12-week challenge, and I can't remember what week we're in, but this week is write a letter to someone that you haven't. So reconnect. And they've been going really well. We've been seeing uptake from people across Canada. And it's just we want to keep people engaged and people active.
Yeah.
And so there was, cooking. I tried my hand at making bread.
How'd that go?
It didn't go well. I've been told never to do it again.
Pretty strong reaction.
Never give up, Michelle.
I know. Well, all right, I'll give it one more try. But we know that people are at home, they're isolated, and so any way that we can get them engaged is really important. But then also understanding that our world has really moved online, and for a lot of people with brain injury, that's a barrier. The visual stress issues, the cognitive fatigue that comes with being online precludes them from participating. So that's something that when we move all of our community programs online, we have to keep that in mind as well. So this COVID-19 is a lot of the organizations, brain injury associations have had to really quickly shift and adapt. So what we're hoping to do is after the fact, or as this goes on, get the best practices, what has really worked, what hasn't, and share those so that when we're better equipped to deal with either a second wave or a future pandemic, so that we can just pick up right where we left off and keep people engaged.
Right. And I was asking both about June being Brain Injury Awareness Month, and I guess I'll start off with who's got something really actually, I'll have to make you decide who to speak first. I'll decide. Let's see. Or Terry, you can decide. Should I ask Newfoundland NLBIA or Brain Injury Canada about June being?
I'll ask Marina, and if she could tell me, I guess, what are your plans for Brain Injury Awareness Month? But also, I want to ask you if you think your organization is recognized in the province as as much as it should be, I guess, in terms of funding or in terms of the amount of people dealing with this and the resources that you provide them.
Well, for June, for Brain Injury Awareness Month, we try to get out the current information, nationally and provincially, whatever's going on, and like anything medical that's occurring that's new, we try to encourage, within the association, we try to get out as much as we can. We have a super board of directors this year. I just only wish I could clone them because they are so dedicated. It's uncanny. But for June, we usually, like for myself, for my group, for ABLE, which is our support and social group, And we hold a hot dog sale every year down at the Miller Center. And of course, now this year we can't do it. So, I mean, with all the fundraising, it's impacted us greatly because, I mean, unless you have funding, you can't provide the services that you really want to provide for, for the community. So what we've tried, like you were just talking about, some of our survivors, they trying to do online chatting and trying to source out information on the computer. It's just impossible for some, and we're just trying to reach out to whoever we can and pass along the word that we're here, we're open if anyone wants to chat. And with my ABLE group, I set up a line with them, and like I told them from the beginning, don't hesitate if you want to call me. I'm here, so I'm only a phone call away. And any way I can reach out to anyone. I mean, my number is available. I mean, just call me.
Okay. Nick?
Sorry. So Michelle, then, what does Brain Injury Canada have anything planned for, or anything planned, or would have been planned? What have you been doing in June had this COVID not happened? And now that the COVID has happened, what are you doing in June?
So June is always a really exciting month. There's a flurry of activity across the country. And, I should say that awareness should happen all year, but there seems to be an apex in June. So what we would have done, I was supposed to go to BC to do a tour of the British Columbia brain injury associations, and also there were think tanks happening that had been provincially funded through the Gerald Bree Center for Traumatic Life Losses, and they were on. The topic was on brain injury, mental health, and addiction. I was supposed to go to Montreal for a conference on traumatic brain injury research, and then there's also events in Toronto within Ottawa. So none of that's happening.
No, exactly.
So for the last 8 months, back in last fall, we sent out an email to all the associations across Canada at both the community and provincial level to say we'd like to collaborate on a Brain Injury Awareness Month online campaign. Are you interested in participating in a working group? And so we had a great response. So this group met probably over the phone and over Zoom, maybe once every 6 weeks, to talk about what activities they're doing within their communities, but then what can we collaborate on? And then also, this is just the start of what we want to do. We want to do a national awareness campaign, work towards that. But we need to decide, what is awareness? Are we raising awareness to change policy, to get more funding? Are we raising awareness in the general public, or are we giving survivors a voice? Or maybe we're doing all of that. So we really need to focus. What are we doing? What is the point of awareness? And if we're to do a Bell, similar to the Bell Let's Talk campaign, what are we trying to achieve through that? So that's to come. But so for the last 8 months, this working group, we worked collaboratively, and we developed we decided to continue on the anyone, anytime, anywhere campaign for this year. So that's brain injury can happen to anyone, anytime, anywhere. And so we've created some posts to go on social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, whatever platforms the organization has. And then each week focuses on one of those themes. And then the last week is a bit of a wild card, where we're posting stats, comments from real people, and then other engaging content. So we also know that June is a major fundraising campaign month. Many people do runs, they do walks, they do networking galas and other in-person events. And so due to COVID-19, none of this is able to happen. So it's leaving organizations with massive funding gaps. We were supposed to have our conference in April, which is a huge fund generator for us, but we had to postpone it to September. And they're talking about September not even being able to meet in new groups, or large groups. So we've had to move it to next June. So there's these massive funding gaps that are happening for all these charities and and not just in the brain injury sector, for the whole charitable sector. So it's a real, we can do our online campaign, and I'm thrilled at the collaboration from the provinces and the communities. But we also need to be able to recognize that our funding, a lot of our organizations' fundings are gone now for the time being. So that's something that we probably also need to raise awareness about and do a donation drive in the fall or something.
How will you come back from that? If your
Yeah.
Is that a worry? Is that a concern?
Oh, I think so. I think that this pandemic, we're hearing a lot about the businesses that are closing, but it's hit the charitable sector hard. And there's been massive layoffs there, and I think we'll see this for years to come. That we rely on sponsorships and donations from businesses and corporations, but they've seen a drastic decline in their profits as well. So they'll probably be more selective in the charities they support and how much money they give. So I think we'll see our corporate campaigns decrease, and so I think there also has been a shift in both the public and the private sector of funding going towards pandemic planning, but not going towards the community services that are so crucial to. So it's something that we have to sort of band together and raise awareness about, that the charitable sector has really been left behind, and there's not been a lot of while we're included in some of the the programs the federal government has, there's nothing been really specific for the charitable sector. So I think we'll see the impact for years to come, and unfortunately I think a lot of the programming that has been delivered will probably be reduced as a result of this.
For sure. Do you feel the same, Marina? Can you see your programming impact as a result of funding after this?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, we had our main events, like our golf tournament and several different things that we've had to cancel. And I mean, between the volunteers and the money you raise, I mean, it's absolutely crucial to have all that in place so you can, continue to provide services. But in the same thing for June Awareness Month, we have decided to have a bake sale, and it's a virtual bake sale, and we have a walk. It's all advertised on our website, so if people would care to go and check on that, it's available. And also we started a 50-50 draw, and it's been very successful. And if we get to sell all our tickets, I mean, some lucky person will win nice sum of money. So that little fundraiser is online, and I mean, anyone can contact myself or anyone on the association, and we'll be glad to assist with anyone that wants tickets. And that's just something we're promoting in June because of the fact that we can't, and we haven't done any fundraising through the year because of the COVID-19. So, I mean, we're all suffering greatly from that, unfortunately.
Difficult for sure.
Yeah, like I said, the nonprofit organizations, they're the ones that are really suffering.
That's right. Can I ask both of you, I mean, it being Brain Injury Awareness Month, about to be, and with the limitations that you have on you in terms of what you can do and how you can promote your events this month, can I ask you both, what would you like the public to know about brain injury? What do you think the public needs to know about it?
I think the people need to be educated. There's such a stigma connected to brain injury. I find a lot of people aren't comfortable around brain injury survivors, which is very unfortunate. Right. And people with brain injury don't always want to, say, oh, I had a brain injury, or I'm suffering from a brain injury, because of the stigma connected with that as well. And it's so prevalent out there. I mean, people need to not be afraid to become involved with people that are brain injured. I mean, they're regular people just like ourselves. I mean, they live differently, they do things differently, and I mean, they have a heart, they hurt. They have a mind which they can use, beautiful minds, and I mean, it's just something that people have to get over, this stigma, and I mean, just not be afraid. And I mean, if they get an opportunity to help someone, I mean, please go do it, even if it's just a hello or a smile or anything at all. Reach out to people, and especially with this time of year and everything that's going on with the COVID. And also, I want to speak about helmet safety, because this is a little crucial too. Not only this time of year, but all year long. I mean, depending on the activity that you're involved with. I mean, summer and winter and different activities, you have to wear the specific helmet for that activity, and you'll have to fit it properly. So, I mean, if anyone out there wants any information on how to fit a helmet properly or which helmet they should purchase, I mean, just feel free to call us, and I mean, we'll help. We've held clinics in the past, and I mean, if anyone wants anything, with help like with that, we can certainly accommodate them.
Perfect, thanks. Michelle?
Sorry, I lost the question. What was the?
What do you want people to know about brain injury if you had to summarize?
I think that it's so prevalent, and there's so many different facets to it. There's not just one definition. I mean, there's a definition for it, but that intimate partner, it can happen at home. Intimate partner violence. 270,000 Canadian women a year suffer brain injuries from intimate partner violence. The homeless, 50% of homeless people have brain injuries. The incarceration numbers of people with brain injury. And then also when you look at the Indigenous populations, they're twice as likely to have a brain injury, but also don't have the same access to rehabilitation and treatment, so have poorer health outcomes. So I think raising awareness about that, brain injuries beyond just concussion in sports and youth. There is so much more. They're seeing more concussions in seniors than they are in youth. But seniors have a higher chance of being hospitalized because if they fall and they've hit their head, but they've also broken their hip or so I think that there's just having it on people's radar. I completely agree about the stigma. One of the challenges is with brain injury is that it's invisible a lot of the time. So people have to feel, especially when, for someone interacting with first responders, this is why we partnered with Medical Alert. And I think the Newfoundland Police Services joined with their Connect.
I was actually at the ceremony with Angie.
Oh, that's great. So that's what we've been doing we started this partnership with Medical Alert a few years ago, and we've been connecting them as they partner with these police services, we've been connecting them with the Brain Injury Association, because things like failure to initiate or impulse control or perseveration, those can often be seen as defiance if people... Right. So with Connect Protect, they're able to, if someone has a brain injury and they're part of the Medical Alert program, the police services are able to just log in that number and go, oh, this person has a brain injury. These are some of their common, they have memory issues. They have, they tend to perseverate. Then they'll know. And it also enables us access to first responders to educate them about brain injury, because traditionally that's quite hard to do. So I think in a nutshell, I want everyone to know everything about brain injury, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah,
so
there's no nut big enough, as Austin Powers would say.
Yeah, but I think just creating awareness about that these are people. They deserve to be valued, engaged, and supported in their communities, and they have the same rights and should have the same opportunities as everyone else. I just think that understanding brain injury would go a long way to helping people not be afraid of brain injury, not making people feel stigmatized. So
that's true. I agree 100%.
Excellent. Thank you.
Nick?
Well, actually, sorry, Marina, do you want to say something?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that we can take this into our own hands as well. I mean, to promote a healthy style of living, don't overindulge with alcohol and try to restrain from using drugs. Substance abuse is a big thing as well. And I mean, all this causes brain injury. And, the things that we eat, we can keep our bodies healthy, but we can also keep our brains healthy. And we should exercise our brains as well, because, I mean, as we get older, there's, not so many healthy brain cells there as when we're younger. So, I mean, we have to, what we have left, we have to really concentrate on keeping them healthy. And, I mean, eating the right foods and, the right food groups. I mean, that'll certainly encourage, a healthy living style and just keep our brains, a little more active and healthy as we get older. And, that helps along the way as well.
Yeah, actually, Michelle, I'm just watching the pulses of the Skype balloons, I guess, on the. So I saw yours increase, so I thought you may have something to say, but it's hard to tell really because I'm just looking at those white circle.
Oh no, I was just nodding. Maybe I don't know.
Okay, well there goes. Actually, well, I guess now before we close off, because Tara doesn't put my co-host as a guest, kind of almost. The court system, because I know Tara, that's what Tara's doing a lot of her work now, and as a reporter, and there's a lot of talk about you two before we started this podcast. We're talking about the need for a definition in court, or there's a lot of problems that brain injured people have with the court system. So would you want to talk? I know it's a full podcast of its own right, but the full few part podcast, the full series of its own right. But I mean, on 5 minutes, whatever. Or I mean,
it does come up, Nick, a lot in court. I see, and Michelle and Marina can speak about it. But when I see it in court, it's in terms of victims of crime as well as offenders. It is common on both sides, and it's an issue that isn't really, they don't know how to deal with it. It takes a lot to call in an expert to confirm when that's a defense in a crime. It takes a lot to get that verified, to get that accepted as appropriate defense too. What can you talk about that, Michelle? What you were mentioning in terms of the criminal code and the advocacy work that you're doing?
Yeah, so brain injury, and I'm talking more specifically about offenders. Brain injury, there's no definition. It doesn't fit really in the criminal code. It falls under mental health. Mm-hmm. And so when I was speaking to a judge in Ottawa, and Ottawa has a mental health court. Not every area has a mental health court. I'm located in Ottawa. But I was speaking to a judge, and she said one of the problems that she sees is that there's no proper place for brain injury. It falls under mental health. But then when the judge needs to order assessments, they're mental health assessments. And brain injury is not a mental health issue. Brain injury is an injury to the brain. Someone with the brain injury may suffer from mental health issues such as anxiety, depression, but brain injury itself is not a mental health issue. So if the judge can't order the proper assessments, then they're not going to get a proper idea of what's happening. And not to excuse crime, but you have to look at the whole situation. And it's a more human side of looking at why this was happening, and maybe there's impulse control issues, maybe there was manipulation. So having the proper assessments enables them to get a proper picture. But without that proper picture, then when they're making I've lost the word for the judgment, when they're making the recommendation, it becomes, if without that proper picture, they can't really make it in a rehabilitative nature. They're looking at a more punitive. And so it's this cycle. If they're not, then they go into the correction system, and the correction system doesn't know how to treat people with brain injury. And so someone, they're being told to do something, but they have initiation problems. Well, then that becomes a behavior issue, and they're being defiant. So it's not really giving a proper picture, and it's setting that person up for failure. And so and we see this not just with brain injury, but also with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, because it also is not a mental health issue, but also they are also overrepresented in the criminal justice system. So we've been working with those groups to see how can we get the criminal code changed to include proper definitions of brain injury and FASD. So it's something that we're working on. We were able to meet with a policy advisor for the Minister of Justice, David Lametti, Minister of Justice and Attorney General, which was a great start, but then COVID-19 happened and no one's meeting with anyone. So we'll keep at this because it's an important issue. And yes, crime shouldn't happen, but looking at why the crime happened, but then also what is the proper, it should be rehabilitative in nature rather than simply punitive. So, and it's a complex issue, but it's an important issue.
Perfect.
Well, for me, there's so much to unpack for the justice system and brain injury that I think it's a really interesting topic that I will definitely get into more on these podcasts. But for now, for this podcast was about hopefully going to be about Brain Injury Awareness Month, and it's been about that, but this COVID, of course, is detracted from all the activities and all the good stuff that can happen in June, and but I mean, there's still opportunities to help out and to give your time, more importantly, and to share your issues and your problems. And also with that, if you're sharing, someone needs to listen. Someone needs to also be on the other end of it. Sharing is a two-way street. But so I'd like to thank you both for being part of this podcast. And since this is Tara's first time I've had a co-host, Tara, so Tara can sign us off and or ask any other questions you may have, because I can't see. This is where I can't see anybody. I can just see balloons on Skype.
That's because you're the only one with the camera turned on. Quarantine has not been kind to me.
I don't care though. That's the thing. My hair is huge.
Carol, we can all relate to that.
There's a reason why I'm in print. This is exactly. Yeah. Thank you so much, ladies, both of you, and thank you for the important work that you do. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to talk about Brain Injury Awareness Month.
Yeah, and we certainly need to talk about this more in the future as well. There's certainly a lot there to talk about.
Yeah, thank you.
Whether you're in Canada or not, I encourage you to please get involved and learn about brain injury by visiting your local or national brain injury organization. Thank you all for listening. As always, music at the beginning of this podcast is by Ben Sound. www.bensound.com.